The courtroom was silent except for the trembling voice of a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, yet her words struck the air with the weight of thunder. "Let my dad go," she cried, her small hands clutching the edge of the defendant's table, "and I'll make you walk." The judge, a stern man with deep lines on his face and cold gray eyes, glanced down from the bench. His lips twitched into a condescending smile, and soon, quiet laughter rippled across the room. The lawyers, the jury, even the guards, they all chuckled at the absurdity. Make him walk? The man in the judge's chair had been paralyzed from the waist down for nearly 15 years. Her father, Marcus Reed, sat beside her, handcuffed and weary. A former construction worker, his eyes carried the kind of pain that comes from years of struggle. He'd been accused of assaulting a wealthy developer, a man who tried to seize their home after a false debt claim. Marcus had fought back, and now he was facing years in prison. The judge tapped his gavel lightly, smirking. "Young lady," he said, voice dripping with mock authority, "this is a courtroom, not a fairy tale." But the girl, Lily, didn't move. Her eyes were steady, fierce even. "You don't know what I can do," she whispered. "God listens when I pray." The room fell quiet again, not out of respect, but curiosity. Marcus lowered his head. "Lily, sweetheart, it's okay," he murmured, his voice thick with tears. "Don't do this. Daddy will be fine." But Lily shook her head. "No, Daddy. You didn't do anything wrong. I'll show them." She turned back to the judge, her small fingers clutching the tiny silver cross around her neck. "You can laugh," she said softly, "but before this day ends, you'll walk again." The judge chuckled one last time. "Well then," he said, sarcasm heavy in his voice, "by all means, proceed, Miss Miracle Worker." Lily stepped forward, barefoot, her worn shoes left behind near her chair. The courtroom guard instinctively moved, but the judge motioned for him to stop. Clearly amused, she knelt near the judge's bench, closing her eyes tightly. For a long moment, the room was still. Everyone watched as her lips moved silently. Then, she spoke. "Lord," she whispered, "please, not for me, not even for Daddy. But so they'll know you're real. Let him walk again." The judge's smirk faded. He looked uncomfortable now, glancing toward the bailiff as if to signal that this little performance had gone far enough. But before he could say anything, a sudden sound cut through the silence. A faint, sharp gasp. The judge's hand gripped the edge of his desk. His breathing quickened. A strange warmth spread down his legs, a sensation he hadn't felt in over a decade. His eyes widened as his foot twitched beneath the robe. Someone in the jury box gasped. "Did you see that?" The judge blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of it. Then, trembling, he pressed both hands to his chair's armrests, and slowly began to rise. The courtroom erupted. The bailiff stumbled backward, a woman in the back screamed, and one of the lawyers dropped his papers. The judge was standing, his legs shook under his weight, but he was standing that he looked down in disbelief, then back at the little girl kneeling before him, tears streaming down her cheeks. Lily whispered, "Now please, let my daddy go." The judge's lips quivered. For a moment, the proud, rigid man who ruled his courtroom like a king was just a broken human being, humbled and terrified that he stumbled forward, testing each step as though afraid the ground might disappear. When he reached Lily, he fell to his knees beside her. How did you do that?" he stammered. She looked up at him through tears. "I didn't. God did." The courtroom was chaos now, reporters whispering, jurors staring, people crying. Marcus sat frozen, his own tears falling freely. The judge looked up at him, this man he had condemned without mercy, and suddenly, shame washed over him. "Mr. Reed," he said softly, I think we've seen enough." He turned to the court clerk. "Case dismissed." Lily ran to her father as the chains were removed. Marcus swept her up in his arms, holding her close, sobbing into her hair. "You did it, baby," he whispered. "You really did it." The judge stood there silently for a long moment, his hands trembling as he took another step, steady this time. The courtroom had fallen into stunned silence once more, but this time there was no laughter, no sarcasm. Finally, he spoke. "I came into this room thinking justice was something I controlled," he said, voice breaking. "But today, I learned justice doesn't belong to man. It belongs to something, someone, far greater." He looked at Lily, then at Marcus. "I owe you both an apology, and my gratitude." The Reeds left the courthouse hand in hand. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but Lily didn't care. She just held her dad's hand tighter, smiling through her tears. As they stepped outside into the sunlight, Marcus knelt and looked into her eyes. "How did you know, Lily? How did you know that would happen?" She smiled shyly. "Because I saw him walking in my dream last night," she said softly. "God told me not to be afraid." Months passed, and the story spread across the country. Some called it a miracle, others called it madness. But for Judge Harris, there was no doubt. He resigned from his post, dedicating the rest of his life to helping the poor, especially fathers fighting for their families, and every Sunday morning, he walked into the small neighborhood church where Marcus and Lily worshipped, his step steady and sure. Sometimes, when the choir sang and the light poured through the stained glass, he'd see Lily in the front pew, hands lifted high, eyes closed, and he'd remember the moment faith silenced laughter. The day a little girl looked power in the face and said, "Let my dad go, and I'll make you walk." And the world never laughed at her again.